You're listening to the Stokes podcast, real and inspiring conversations with individuals from all over the world, sharing their insights on sustainability, fashion, conscious consumerism and empowerment. Be inspired to take action and be the change you want to see in the world. Hey, and welcome to the Stokes podcast. I am very lucky today to have Jade McSorley with me. Hi Jade, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm really excited to delve into our conversation. So firstly, Jade, why don't you tell our listeners a bit about you and a bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jade McSorley. I'm currently in London, but as you can tell from my accent, I'm northern, from North England. I'm the co-founder of Loanhood, which is a fashion rental app, which I'm sure we'll discuss more on this podcast. But we're a two-sided marketplace specifically for renting clothes instead of buying clothes. My background actually was as a fashion model for a lot of fast fashion brands. And that's kind of where my sustainability journey kind of started, from kind of seeing the fashion industry from a very unique perspective. As a model, you kind of end up being a little bit of a fly on the wall. So I ended up going back to study my master's, and I'm currently studying a PhD in sustainability and innovation in fashion, which kind of goes alongside Loanhood and helps me build Loanhood with our team. So yeah, I'm quite busy these days.
Sounds like you are. Yeah.
Really looking forward to Christmas break.
Aww. So amazing. I mean, I'm really excited to hear more about Loanhood. So, and I love the fact that you were a model for fast fashion. Like,
yeah,
fascinating. Like, so what does sustainability mean to you? Now, I know sustainability is very much a buzzword and it can get quite confusing for people. It's thrown around quite a lot as well. But what does it mean to you to be sustainable?
Yeah, I mean, for sustainability, I think is very personal. It's kind of a personal journey for you because, like you said, it is such a complex issue. And I think when you first start on realizing how unsustainable the fashion industry is, you kind of want to solve it all, and you want to kind of come in and, you know, take the whole industry, shake it up and make it much more sustainable. And you quickly realize actually that that's almost impossible. So you start to think about, okay, how can I kind of make my impact and how can I make a difference within the fashion industry, specifically, and also, you know, just the way of life, you know, like I think as soon as you start kind of approaching certain elements of your life with more sustainable choices, it filtrates into everything that you do, and you just become a bit more conscious about you as a consumer, you as somebody who's using products and using services, and, you know, thinking like, I have power in my hands to be able to make a more sustainable choice. But again, it's very much personal to you in the context that you're in and what you can offer as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It's very personal and it's also unique to each individual, and just becoming more aware is the first step, right? Because it's like you said, we want to, like, as soon as we get into sustainability, it's like, oh, we can change the world, we can do this, we can change the fashion industry. And I think a lot of us are realizing now that it also is what can I do? What changes can I make in my life as an individual? And the way I show up and the way I consume and how I use products and what I use and where I'm buying them from, you know, rather than thinking, well, that brand needs to change and that government needs to do this, which, yes, of course they do. But at the same time, the power is in your own hands as an individual person, right?
Yeah, I think there's an element of both. Obviously, you need government, you know, to step up. They do have power, so use it.
Absolutely.
But we do have power as well, and like maybe you might feel like it's an incremental thing, but it's actually the more small things can create like a bigger change. And you know, the whole reason why kind of Loanhood even started with the fact that I realized that it was super unrealistic to tell anybody not to shop fashion, so
Yeah.
my I go up north and still everybody shops at Primark and other fast fashion stores, and it's like, how can you tell people that you can never shop fashion at all? So we have to kind of create alternatives that
Yeah.
can help us slow down the consumption of these new fast fashion items, and leave space for more sustainable ways of of consuming. So that's why kind of Loanhood grew from that, really. So yeah, it's just really unrealistic to say you can't shop fashion anymore.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because we all have to get dressed every day. And
Yeah,
also, fashion is creativity, it's art form, it's personal expression. And, it is enjoyable. And I think, like you said, there needs to be other alternatives. Like, we can't just tell people to stop shopping and stop buying fast fashion, but we have to offer alternatives really to help, solve the issue, or at least slow it down.
yeah, sustainable fashion right now, like any item of clothing that's made sustainably is generally a lot more expensive than a fast fashion item. If you don't have that budget, then you don't have that choice of buying it. Shopping sustainably is a luxury.
Mm.
So how can you make it more accessible and more attainable? When I think about myself as like a teenager up north in Middlesbrough, it's like I would never be able to, like, no matter my greatest intentions, I would never be able to afford a sustainable item of clothing. Like, you have to kind of find where your budget can stretch to.
Yeah.
And fashion for me was always super important, and I like to dress up, and it was about like creating my own identity, especially in a small town, and you want to kind of break out, and fashion is a way that you do that. But we were looking in a way to have all that kind of choice of fashion without knowing how unsustainable it was. I mean, for us, it was kind of ignorance is bliss. So now that I'm at a point, in my life where I'm aware of all these things, it's kind of like, how can you suppress that onto the next generation? Say, actually, we had all this choice, but we've messed it up. So now you're not allowed to. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a good point, actually. It's like you can't tell them to suddenly stop just because, other generations kind of messed it up. And now it's like, it's, the problem
the
is like
knock-on
thrown into
effect.
their lap. Yeah. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's like, now
you're
you need to
right.
change. Yeah, but I mean, we all have to change. We all have to
Yeah.
do things in a different way. This kind of linear process of the fashion industry, from like you buy, you throw away, you buy, you throw away,
Yeah.
can't go on anymore. So we need to find these solutions, and it comes to, like, goes back to, like you said, it is our personal choices that have impact, but it's also providing these other solutions and opportunities for people to still kind of be involved. Well, if we're talking about fashion, like, get their fashion fix, but still kind of help towards fixing this real issue that the industry is imposing on the planet.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great point. And was there, Jade, like a pivotal moment? Like, how did Loanhood come about? Was it like just suddenly, or was it something that was cooking?
It
Tell
was
us a bit
definitely
about that.
cooking away. I mean, it was cooking away because you know, I was modeling for a lot of fast fashion brands. You, as a model, you want to get as many jobs as possible,
Yeah.
but that means actually that you're shooting more and more items every day. And every time I was kind of going back to the studio, I was realizing the amount of product as well that was like increasing. Like, I remember starting like a long time ago, 15 years ago, and you'd shoot kind of 20 outfits a day. And then, fast forward 7, 8 years, you're shooting double that, if not triple
Yeah.
that.
Wow. Mm.
And there's not only you in the studio, there's like 10 other models in the studio. So it just kind of really showed me, I was like, how is all this stuff being made, and where's it all going, and who's wearing it? And so it was kind of like bubbling under the surface. And I think it kind of just got to a point where I was obviously contemplating life after modeling. Like modeling is a very short career span
Yeah.
anyway. And I was like, what am I going to do? Because I kind of wanted to be a fashion journalist. But then I was like, I don't know if I really want to keep selling fashion. Like,
Mm.
how can I use the experience that I have in a way that I felt like aligns with, my morals and my values? And I felt like I was just not really respecting the industry as it was. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to go and study again. And I didn't have the confidence to just kind of create Loanhood off the back. So I really wanted to kind of go in and, educate myself into kind of the state of what the industry was and to make sure that I was like on the right track. But yeah, I didn't feel like I had the confidence just to kind of go ahead and be, create a business straight away. I felt like I really needed to dive deep into the problem. And that's what like my master at London College of Fashion like helped me do.
Right, yeah, amazing. Yeah, I guess because it's also like when you know the reality of what's going on, then you can properly look at what solution you can offer.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was already the kind of idea was already there actually in front of me because renting fashion is not something that's like a totally new idea. It was like
Ah,
it was
yeah.
already happening in the fashion industry anyway. Like when I was turning up to shoots, like the stylist would be kind of borrowing items from PR agencies or
Showrooms. Hmm.
or even like buying them from the shop and then taking them back. I know that stylists do that. So it was kind of already, it was, I know that, consumers do that. It's wardrobing,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah,
But I could see it happening anyway. And I was like, if we're only wearing these items like once and then sending them back, surely there's an opportunity there
yeah.
that is
Right.
like benefiting the consumer and also can be a bit more sustainable than how it currently is. So it wasn't really kind of reinventing the wheel. It's just kind of taking something that was already happening in the industry and trying to apply it to everybody and give them, you can do it as well. You can kind of open up your own wardrobes and you can rent them out and you can rent from somebody else for a small amount of time if you're only going to wear it once and then send it back. And it's
Yeah.
just like extending and maximizing the use of the clothes that we already have instead of, having to go out and buy new and buy the same dress that somebody else might have bought, from Zara.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 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 totally. Yeah, it's funny because do you remember like when I was young when we used to do fancy dress and we would rent a costume,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? And it's like same kind of thing, like in a way. Sometimes I think, like if I'm going to
yeah,
an event, instead of going and buying something new because I don't have loads of event clothes or whatever, it makes so much more sense to be able to rent. And then like, if you've got items that, are good quality that you can easily rent out and
yeah.
earn some money as well and share with other people. And also, I feel it's really inspiring to see how other people style your items and things like that, right?
100%. Yeah, because I honestly I was getting a bit bored of clothes and stores. I felt like everything was so the same. I was like,
Yeah.
where's everybody's like individuality and like, you know, why aren't people like upcycling more things for like their night out or but it's just so cheap now. It's like why would they spend the time doing that
Yeah.
when they can just go out and get it? Like so yeah, I feel like it's definitely lost that lack that is that individuality, that creativity, that space to kind of be creative as well. Um and that's what we really wanted to kind of bring into the Loanhood model. It was like less about trends and rather
Yeah.
more about kind of celebrating personal style because if you're renting a trend it's still going to be kind of out of trend in the next season, so it's like style is kind of timeless if
Yeah,
you kind
absolutely.
of, if you find your individual style that can last you forever, and it might change but it definitely changes a lot slower than the trends.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean my style has definitely changed. Like, but maybe it'll change over like every 7 years.
Right.
My style might change, not like the 6 months between the fashion calendar
Yeah, yeah.
or
I think,
two
and
months
what's
or
fun
whatever it is.
about, yeah, What's fun about renting is that you can also experiment with clothes that maybe you think, oh, I've never really tried that before, or colors maybe. You know, some people are quite wary of trying new things, and like, you know, they wouldn't buy certain colors or whatever. Whereas if you can rent, it's like, well, why not? You know, rent an orange dress, like I've never tried it before, kind of thing, and it's
Yeah,
like
and the
experimenting
appetite,
more.
yeah, the appetite
Yeah.
is definitely there. I think people are definitely kind of think they say it to us all the time. They're like, "Oh, I can really like go wild," or like, "I don't feel committed," or like, "I can express my alter ego." I
Yeah.
think that's still coming. You know, people are still like a bit fearful of like trying that, but I think I would hope that, you know, fast forward a few months, that people are really like embracing the fact that actually they can wear whatever they want and they're not committed to buying that product. You always say to the girls, I was like, what would like the chicken shop look like at 3 a.m. if everybody had rental outfits on for a night out? Like, would it be just so excessive and like, so, you know what I mean? Instead of seeing everybody in kind of like the same things, would it
Same.
just be everybody really going wild because it's one night out and they're wearing this outfit once? And, but not in a way that's, you know, as detrimental as going out and buying it new. And a lot of the pieces that are on our app as well are from like about a third of the pieces on our app are actually from emerging designers. So there's only one of each product. So you're definitely not going to be in the same outfit as somebody else.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. So is Loanhood peer to peer only?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us a little bit how that's working then. So you're building a community of
Yeah. So community is like super important to us. And we're peer to peer. Again, we've decided to go down the peer-to-peer route was mainly because of obviously empowering the consumers to be like, you know, you own all these products, you're the, you know, and they're sitting in your wardrobe. Why not monetize them?
yeah,
And that's why we were like, we wanted to kind of create this community of people just like opening up their wardrobes and sharing those pieces. Um, and creating those extra stories from, you know, instead of just buying it, wearing it once and having a lovely time in it, like give it to somebody else to kind of add on to that narrative. So the way the app works is essentially like you upload a piece to the app, somebody requests it, you can accept or decline it. And then if you accept it, you send the piece to the person, they wear it, they love it, they send it back, and then the rental's complete and you were paid basically for that week that they're wearing it. So the more times you rent out a piece, you actually kind of pay back what you bought it for.
right. Yeah, yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
quite like investment as well,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah, totally. And who's your user? You know, are
We're
they what kind of age
so we're more
generation?
targeted at like Gen Z, like the
Okay.
next generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because, you know, again, it comes down to that individuality, creativity, the open-mindedness of of Gen Z, and their kind of awareness of the state of the climate and, you know,
Yeah.
fashion consumption.
Mm.
We really wanted to create a platform for them. However, you know, being peer to peer, we are open to anybody who wants to put on their wardrobe. And, you know, we're still kind of figuring it out as well. Like rental is still quite a new space and we're a new company. So it's like, you know, matchmaking the product to the right type of renters is something that we're still playing around with. So it'll be interesting to see how it evolves. Like we really want to, you know, it's interesting who like wants to rent the emerging designer pieces. Like generally they're like stylists or drag queens, you know, people who want to kind of,
Okay.
yeah, really
Yeah.
kind of go bold for a performance. A lot of music artists as well.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, it's really starting to evolve into a kind of a culture,
Mm.
which is interesting to see.
Yeah, no, amazing. I would definitely rent my things.
Oh, brilliant!
Um,
Yeah, brilliant.
yeah, yeah, I definitely would. And I'm 42, so like I think, you know, and also for me the opportunity to play around with other clothes that maybe I might not necessarily buy or probably wouldn't buy, but would
Yeah,
like to rent them for a week or whatever. For me, that's like super fun and it gives me a chance to experiment more, you know. So
And you're
Yeah, I
also
think,
supporting, like, smaller designers, independent brands who are, not making mass collections and mass, producing en masse. They're making very small collections, but they're getting to be but one by more people.
yeah, known, right?
Yeah.
More visibility. Yeah, absolutely. And like, do you have like a criteria for what you can rent? Like, can people rent Zara items, or
I
is
mean,
that?
yes, to be honest, we wanted fast fashion pieces to be involved, and the reason for doing that is, we've obviously been said, well, that's not sustainable having, fast fashion high street pieces on the app. But I was like, well, they're already in existence. So
Oh,
if they're not getting
yeah, yeah, yeah,
worn,
yeah,
then how do we extend their life and also, get that cost per wear down? So when we were kind of making Loanhood, we're like, can we make it? We need to make it as accessible and attainable as possible. It can't be just the high end pieces that
yeah.
we come onto the app. We need to like lower the price point. So we have like two ways of doing it. So you can loan an item, but you can also loan like a whole look. So you can bring
Oh,
in like fast fashion pieces that are a bit more of a lower price point, but don't make sense for kind of like the 10% rental price,
yeah,
because we always say like rent, it's around 10-15% of the retail price we would suggest renting it out for a week. So obviously, if you've got a high rent piece, that kind of, ratio between the prices kind of works, but with a lower end, it might not. So, or
mm,
you might not feel like it's worth the effort. So if you
yeah,
build it into a look, into an outfit, and you've got a high street dress with a bag, shoes, you can bring them all together into a bundle and you can rent that as well. And also it kind of goes back to kind of showing off your own style, like how you put things together. And the borrower doesn't have to take everything from that look. They can select, oh, I love the dress and the shoes together, but I don't really like the bag.
yeah.
um, they can do that. Or they can be like, oh my god, I just love how they've put that together, like I would never have thought of that, I'm going to rent the whole thing. So kind of a bit of a styling service in there as well,
Nice.
which yeah, and it helps bring in those fast fashion pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great. I love it. And have you thought about like extending the community from like online to offline? Like,
Yeah, we do a lot of rental studios, which are always really fun.
yeah.
We've done a lot recently, hence why I'm probably not very well with this cold.
Aw.
Probably lack of sleep, which is startup life. But but
Yeah.
yeah, we do a lot of rental studios. We actually started before we even got had the app in existence. We used to do clothes swaps in communities, and we do a lot with our local council, and other councils. Even in London, we've worked outside of London as well. I was actually back up north in my hometown doing a swap there a few weeks
Nice.
back. And it's just like a really good way of getting into the community and educating the community about more sustainable ways of refreshing their wardrobes, building connections through clothes, with the community. And it's like a really nice place for people to come together, and doesn't feel like it's like an activity. It doesn't feel like we're just preaching about sustainability and like, which you never want to do because nobody
No.
wants you to, yeah, preach about
Yeah.
it. Like, talk to people, get them involved in something. And swaps are just a really nice way of doing that. And people like come, they bring their old things, they refresh them for something new. Um, and they leave happy, and it's been like a really good day. And a lot of families come along to it as well, which is nice.
That's
So we
nice.
do them, yeah. And we carry on to do them. We do them like all throughout the year. But then we have our fashion rental studios, which are a little bit more of a party. We always try and kind of search for emerging designers within that area that we're kind of coming into. So we were in Liverpool like a month back. We were in Glasgow. So we'll try and find emerging designers from from those areas, and then we'll kind of curate this studio of their pieces. People can come, they can try on, they can meet the designers. We have music, drinks. It's
Right.
and it's really good, and we can hear from people first hand, and they can see the
And
clothes firsthand as well, and they can ask us like questions about rental and like what is worrying them and how can we help them in that. So it's definitely hugely important to us. I feel like in real life is just as important as the app, to be honest, if not more.
right. Yeah, because of those kind of human connections instead of it being like a
Yeah,
screen, right? Yeah. And what's the biggest worry of people? Just curious to know
there's
that.
quite a few worries, I have to say. There's quite, and that's the challenge that we have. The challenge for rental is changing consumer behavior and kind of getting consumers to look at fashion and the clothes that they own in a very different light.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, the most obvious ones is like what happens if it gets damaged when it's away, or if it doesn't get returned, or if it gets like hygiene is one.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
of course, especially because of COVID, right? It's
Yeah, so there's definitely like these kind of logistical things to rental that is always like a bit of a concern. And we've done everything we can, obviously, in the app to kind of mitigate those concerns. We build a really trusted community. Everyone has to be verified in the app. Every garment has to go through a verification process through us, so we know exactly what's coming on. When you're uploading an item, you have to stipulate whether it needs dry cleaning. If you're happy for the borrower to wash it during the rental period, then you can say
Mhm.
yes or no. And if you say
Right.
yes, then you have to tell them exactly how to do it.
Yeah.
Um, there's like messaging through the app so they can communicate with everybody. And we have rental protection, so which is optional. Like if they're really concerned that it's going to be damaged or something, then they can take out the rental protection for an extra fee, and then that covers like any minor repairs or damages. Um, and if the worst comes to the worst and it never gets returned, or it's beyond repair, like touch wood, that's never happened, I'm knocking my head, but we have to prepare ourselves for them things. And if it doesn't, then the borrower has to pay the full retail price. So, and that's you sign up to
Fair
those
enough.
terms and conditions
Yeah.
when you got them. So it's essentially like you'll end up selling that piece to the person if the worst case scenario does happen.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Actually, I never thought about the whole washing and like hygiene thing. They're thinking
Yeah,
washing
we've done so
it.
much research into it. It's because you know, it, they're your clothes, and you want to make sure that they're looked after
Yeah,
properly.
absolutely. Yeah.
Whether it's a fast fashion piece or whether it's something that you've spent a little bit more money on, you want
Mm.
to make sure that people are respecting the garment. And I feel like it's quite rental's quite nice to bring back that value in fashion again. Like really valuing those items that have been made by people by hands. Um, but yeah, we have to make sure that everybody is super happy with how they're being treated during the rental. And we spoke to a lot of the loaners, so the owners of the garments. We're like, are you happy for the borrower to wash the piece or do you want it to be returned to you washed and or dry cleaned? And
Mm.
the most people were like, no, 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 like we would rather just dry clean it and wash it
Yeah.
ourselves, because we know the garment and we know exactly how it's done. And I don't want it to kind of get put in the wash and then shrink, or,
Yeah.
something. So the borrower pays for those fees, but we leave the actual cleaning process to the actual owner when it's back in their hands.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I would prefer to wash it as
Yeah,
a
I mean everybody's
owner. Yeah.
different, but
Yeah, of
yeah,
course.
everyone's different.
Yeah.
But it's like the majority that is what we've got. And then if somebody's like, "Oh no, I'd rather you just dry clean it," like they can tell them that there's messaging and they can communicate it, etc. So
Yeah. Amazing. There's so many different nuances to it all, isn't there? That, like maybe at the beginning, I bet you didn't even think about certain things, right? And then as you move along developing it, you're like, oh wow.
honestly, like when I thought of this. This was before the pandemic that Loanhood kind of was forming, and we didn't even have rental in the UK at the time. There was Rent the Runway in the US, but
Yeah.
we were talking about it then, and about oh, isn't this such a great idea? And then obviously as you get into like more of the specifics, it's like, okay, so we need to think about that, we need to think about this, and we need to think about that. But I think what we found out is anything to do with the circular economy or sharing economy is a lot about collaboration anyway. Like, we're not going to solve all those aspects without partnering with people who have probably a better solution than we do. So, in terms of like cleaning, we can, we have Oxwash there that we can suggest. In terms of repair, we don't have seamstresses to repair things, but we can say, look, there's the Seam, who are an amazing business who offer seamstresses. They're like the Uber of seamstresses. You can find whoever's close to you. And then you start kind of, creating a bit of a network ecosystem around rentals, which offers so much more opportunities for work and for like just general, like, create a new economy basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like helping people, like making it easy for people, so that they're more inspired to do things. Because often if people start thinking, oh, this seems really like hard, or like it could be difficult or whatever, whereas
Yeah.
it's like, no, you have this, this and this, so don't worry,
Yeah.
everything's kind of taken care of if you need to.
Yeah. I
Yeah, it's
think down the
amazing.
line we definitely need to like even make it easier, because we're still competing with like online shopping. We're still competing with like a click of the button and it's there to you the next day. It's not, rental is not as easy as that, for sure. You have to be
Yeah.
engaged, you have to be involved, you have to respond to to the other side, and like, so there's tasks that you have to do. But it's like, we need to people who understand and engage with the benefits of rental, and like, coming on board this kind of journey, and then hopefully down the line this kind of infrastructure around rental will just kind of become a bit more harmonious, and just really easy to do that, so that people will then be like, oh, I'm going to rent something instead of buying. That'll be our end goal when somebody says that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, and it's also, I think, a lot about mindset, isn't it? Because that's one of the things that I work on a lot with people, is like creating, this more conscious, responsible consumerism. Like, how can I do this better? And not
Yeah.
being afraid to try new things. Because,
Yeah.
especially with fast fashion, it's so easy to go out and buy like a top for £20 or whatever. But then you've got like 10 of the same tops in your wardrobe, but you're bored. And so, because it's cheap, you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, well, I'll just go and buy something new, and it's easy. You just walk into a shop, you pay for it and you leave. And it's like helping like these people shift their mindset into a different kind of way of
Yeah.
living, basically. Because at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it's like a whole new system that we've never experienced before.
Yeah, you have to plan, like, with rental a little bit, you do have to plan a little bit ahead of time. It's like, oh, I have this coming up, but hopefully, you'll be able to just rent really quickly, and if we get it right, you'll be able to instantly rent something from somebody in your community. Which, because we want to create these like local rental hubs that, like, every time we go to like Liverpool or Newcastle or Manchester, can we create a hub that is like, really central and really localized? So if you do rent something, more than likely they're going to be, within the same city as you, if not the same town, because
Yeah,
you start to form like your own style tribe in a way, like even in
yeah,
London, like everybody in East London dresses the same, everybody in West London kind of dresses the same, and it's like, you do start to kind of see this kind of pattern, especially on the app. You do see like if somebody's in East London, it's like they generally have like a certain aesthetic, and it was kind of different to Liverpool. And so yeah, if you're in one of those places, like, but then you can also, try something different and find something from somebody across the UK, and it's like it really opens up the variety of the clothes that you can wear, and experiment with it, like you said.
yeah. No, it's super fun. I love it. I love it. There's not really anything like that in Spain.
Is
There's
there
not
not?
peer-to-peer. No, there's not peer-to-peer
Right.
renting. There is a renting. Um, there's one called Addictor. So it's like
Okay.
Echo Addict. I haven't tried it. I should probably
Oh,
give
you
that a go,
should.
actually. I think it'd be fun, yeah, just to try it and see. But I just love the idea of peer to peer. Like we have Vinted, which in the
Yeah.
UK you've got Vinted, and I find that
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really fun. And again, it's like for me at first it was like, oh, I sell something. At first I was a little bit dubious of buying something.
Right.
Um, which is really funny because when I was living in London, I was born in London. And so, I went to London College of Fashion and I was constantly buying vintage and charity shopping because that's kind of like quite a lot of our culture in some ways. Like,
Yeah. 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 For sure. Yeah.
and when I came here like 20 years ago, I was like, where are the vintage shops? Like, there wasn't really any. There was like one or two in charity shops. Like, they were really not the kind of charity shops as we know them. You're not going to find a pair of Chloe shoes in a charity shop here like that.
Yeah.
But whereas
Yeah.
you can, like in Notting Hill or different
Yeah.
places in London. So, yeah, I kind of didn't really have that chance anymore to really do like the same kind of shopping. And so every time I went back to London, I'd just be really excited about going, vintage shopping again. But obviously it's changed a lot now. But going back to vintage, it was like, it took me a while to actually go, okay, I'm going to buy. And as
Yeah.
soon as I did it, I was like, why was I resisting this? Like, it's totally, like, it's great. And
Yeah.
also with items on there that I'd seen that were like maybe 4 times as expensive that I'd liked at one point. And because they've been used but are still in good condition, I could buy them for like a quarter of the price. It was like, oh, wow. Like, it's as if it was brand new, but it's not. And it's in great
Yeah.
condition.
It's nice,
Yeah.
like when you start like because we've had a lot of people on the app who's like it's their first rental. They're like, we're seeing the journey of them from being like a rental virgin to suddenly renting. They're like, oh my god! I'm like, why haven't I done this before? That everyone
Yeah.
says that as soon as they're like, oh, I've thought about it for ages. Like I've really, I just waiting for the right time or something like that. And I'm like, just
Do it.
where do we go? Like, I mean, obviously, I'm like, do it fast. But yeah, like it's interesting to be at such the early stages of it. Hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, everybody will have done it, and there'll be no, rental virgins left on the planet. That's the aim. But it's like, but it's quite nice to see everyone's journey from the very beginnings.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's great. I love it. Actually, you've inspired me. I'm going to go and try this renting just to see.
I think you should, you should
Yeah.
try it. I mean, like, I do it. I do it through Loanhood, but I also do it through other platforms as well.
Yeah.
Like, I really love Retoro. They're actually an inventory
Oh,
based platform, but they have they have such great taste as a company. So, it's a bit more curated than so if you know exactly what you want and that's your style, then you can definitely go to them. And I really like their selection.
nice.
But that's the beauty, I think, of the rental model, that you can actually try really different variations. There's subscription based, there's inventory, there's like long lease ones. I know that Mud Jeans, there's like a long lease where you can like rent a pair of jeans and then it for like a year, and then you can send them back and then get a new pair.
I love
Um,
that. I
yeah,
love
there's like
that idea.
loads
Yeah.
of ways in which you can really interpret the model. It, like P2P is just one way of
Wonderful.
going. Yeah,
Yeah. No, it's amazing. Actually, I was thinking when I go to London at Christmas, I could rent something instead of taking like loads of
yeah.
clothes as you normally do in your suitcase.
I
I could
mean
rent
that is
something.
like
That's great.
yeah. I mean that is the ultimate goal, and I'm sure that all the other rental companies are thinking about it. But imagine if you didn't even have to bring a suitcase of clothes on
No, that would
holiday
be
or anywhere,
amazing.
and you could just dress like a local. Because like when you go on holiday and you end up buying all this rubbish, like hats and sarongs and
Yeah.
dresses, and then you feel like really like, you know, hippie because you're like, you know, walking around with this floaty dress and then you come back to London and it's freezing. It's like, oh my God, like what was I thinking? Like it's so out of context. But like imagine if you could just like rock up to your hotel room with your rented, you
No,
know,
amazing.
and then you could leave and like, you know,
And that's
your
it.
Parisian wardrobe in Paris or your, you know,
I love it.
your
Yeah,
Spanish
I love
wardrobe in
this idea.
Madrid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, totally. It's amazing. I love it. I would definitely do that. Because also
Yeah.
as well, the headache of packing is, you know, a lot of people have a lot of headaches when they're packing, like of like what to take. And like if you're going only with a small suitcase, you can't take too much and they're going to charge you if you've got, you know, too much
Yeah.
luggage, you can only take a certain amount or whatever. So I think it's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah, I mean that's the obviously would be the ultimate goal to be, you know, pairing up with local independent brands and
Mm,
you know, stylists and designers from that, you know, just you could really instead of it just being like a wardrobe in the UK, it could be a global wardrobe where people have access to all these amazing pieces that they wouldn't wear on a day to day or they wouldn't bring back to their, you know, everyday lives. But
mm.
when you're away and on holiday, why not? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love it.
yeah.
I love it. So I've got one more question for you before we wrap up. How do you envision the future of fashion?
You know what? I speak a lot about the future of fashion, but this question still stumps me because it's so like I feel like we're on the precipice of something quite amazing.
Mm,
I feel like the fashion industry there's been lots of talk, there's been lots of greenwashing, there's been lots of use of sustainability as a buzzword, but I feel like there's a lot more doing now.
mm,
I do definitely feel like there's a momentum. I think we are evolving into a very digital world, so I feel like that will impact the way that we express ourselves through fashion and maybe purchase fashion in a very, very different way.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I also think it will bring us back to our, you know, that physicality and bricks and mortar will change, but I feel like there'll be more experiential
Yeah,
shopping,
yeah.
where we're bringing people together.
Mm,
Um, so I think it's an exciting time, but I don't think the future is clear, and I think that it's forming and it's shaping and it's evolving and adapting. But there's one thing that I feel like fashion can do is adapt. Um,
absolutely, yeah.
that's the one thing that constantly is always there, no matter what happens in the world, no matter, you know, the instability of everything around fashion is always there.
Yeah.
And it's quite good at adapting. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I just hope
Yeah.
it's more sustainable and less about producing more. Um, that's the one stipulation that I would have for a
Yeah.
very positive fashion future.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like a different way of experimenting with fashion,
I think
less
we need, yeah,
purchasing,
yeah,
and more
yeah,
sharing economy and yeah, communities. Yeah, and
yeah.
digital obviously, but that's a whole nother realm.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole yeah, that's a whole another realm. But you know, again, it comes back to like you said, it's buying less, experiencing more.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Hmm,
yeah, and that's
love
what
it.
I would hope.
Yeah. Who knows what the future holds, but yeah, definitely lots of
I'm
change on the horizon.
not going to put the news on after this.
No, don't.
I did a positive note.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jade, so much for coming on. Please, can you tell our listeners where they can find you and Loanhood, where they
Yeah,
can download the app?
I mean, yeah, so Loanhood app is on the App Store and Google Play, so you can download it there. You can follow us on all the social media channels. There's Instagram, TikTok, which is at Loanhood, and also me, if you want, is at what's my at Jade McSorley.
Okay, amazing. Well, I'll put all this in the show notes anyway, so it's really easy for everyone to just click and
Great.
follow. So thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It's been really inspiring. So I'll let you know how my renting experience goes.
Oh,
and I'm going to try it when I come to London. Yeah.
Please. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Yes. I'd love your feedback on it.
Amazing. So take good care, and I shall speak to you soon.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you. Ciao,
Thanks.
Jade. Bye. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please subscribe to the Lou Stokes podcast. Rate and review in the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're tuning in from. I'd be so grateful. Also, check out the show notes to learn more about my guests and learn more about me on my website, www.loustokes.com. Until next time, be inspired, take action, and be the change you want to see in the world.